So today with me, I have Mark Gundersen, the CEO and president of Marine Advanced Robotics. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay,
Yep.
great. So I'd love to hear, could you give a brief description of what you do at Marine Advanced Robotics?
Yeah, so we're a maritime robotics company specializing in autonomous surface vessels. Our technology is called WAM-V, which stands for Wave Adaptive Modular Vessel. And what we really do, kind of our secret sauce, is that we stabilize the central payload area for sensor deployments. So think of things like hydrographic survey, deploying underwater vehicles, deploying aerial vehicles, cameras, anything where you need a stabilized platform to do the project at sea.
Wow, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Did you always know that you wanted to run a business, be a CEO?
No, I mean, so when I was younger, I mean, there were a lot of people around me that thought I should be a doctor, and I was always good with my hands. I was more mechanically minded, but it was kind of funny that, I mean, that influenced throughout the years. I mean, I actually started university as pre-med, on a pre-med track, yeah, and then I switched my sophomore year into mechanical engineering and product design, and it was just almost immediately that was just it felt right. It was just, for me, it was apparent that was the right direction to go, and so
just clicked.
Yeah, so that's how I kind of got into the engineering and kind of back into the mechanical systems. But I would say the entrepreneurial seed was really planted in my commercial fishing background. So I started when I was really young. I mean, the first time out at sea was 8 years old. I went out on a crab trip. Yeah.
Wow, that is young.
Yeah, I was really young. And it was, wintertime, horrendous weather. It was, it was terrible. But that's what my family did. It's a long background of commercial fishermen.
Got to get used to it. Start them young.
No, it's funny. I mean, it was on that particular trip. It was blowing about 70 knots. We had to go back in because it was so bad. We dumped our load of pots and then went back in. And I mean, that's really bad weather, right? And that was my break-in at 8 years old. And then it was 11 when I started commercial fishing, for a full season. So that's when I started salmon fishing. So, obviously going to school, and then in the summertime I would go salmon fishing, and I did that from 11 to about 22, 23 years old. So all through college. That was actually how I paid for college.
Very cool.
And then I started actually running boats at 18, and that's really kind of when it started to click. I had my, in terms of the entrepreneurial part, that's when I had my first experience running a boat. The first month, I was having a hard time finding any fish. So it was just this tremendous pressure. I've got, responsible to the owner of the boat, I'm responsible to my crew, and we're not catching fish. And, it was just, there was a lot of pressure on me. And then we started to kind of figure it out and get more on the fish, and we ended up having a really good season. But having all that pressure, I actually thrived in that, and I really enjoyed it.
You did.
Yeah, and so I think that's where it really started, and I think from that I knew at some point I wanted to carry that on and run my own business at some point, or run a business at some point.
I feel like that's often one of the things that people say is the hardest thing to do, is have all that pressure on you.
Yeah.
And you have to find ways to deal with that.
Right.
So you started young.
Yeah, it started really young. I mean, there's commercial fishing, it's a lot of work, there's not much sleep, and you just have to get the job done, right? So, I learned a really good work ethic really young. I mean, some would probably say not maybe a little bit unhealthy in that way, but it's just kind of that's how it's been, that's how I grew up, and so that just seemed, at that time, it just seemed normal, right? So it kind of went into college and then went into my professional career as well.
Yeah, and one of the things that I'm really exploring here with people is what are the transferable skills, and for sure you've learned a lot of things from that.
Yeah.
And just like you said, the work ethic, the just knowing calm under pressure, things like that. So wow, that's some good lessons learned.
Yeah, no, definitely. It was a really good experience, and I had a really great teacher. I mean, I started with my dad, and he was really good at what he does. I mean, there's a joke there isn't a democracy on a boat; it's a dictatorship, and so obviously the person at the top needs to be really good. Otherwise, there are problems, right? I mean, they're responsible for everybody's life on board. They're responsible for making money for everybody. So you want to have good people at the top.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's same in a business. You want to have good people at the top because they're going to be responsible for everyone there.
Absolutely.
In a different way.
Right.
But
Maybe not so dramatic, but yeah.
I love that. So then you became an engineer.
Yep.
And you were working as an engineer for a while. Was it within the same company, or was that somewhere?
So what I call my post-fishing career.
Yeah.
So the first company I worked for, I did project management for them. So we built mechanical systems on Navy bases and various other places kind of throughout the West Coast and other parts of the country. And so that really, that was really useful in the sense that it was, project managing these big projects, multi-million-dollar contracts,
Yeah.
lots of people involved, lots of equipment involved. And so that was kind of an important part. Being a good project manager is essential in, anytime when you're running anything, right?
Yeah.
So kind of learning how to do that. That was a great first job. Like I said, the post-fishing career. And then I started at the current company, Marine Advanced Robotics, as the chief engineer, and then slowly but surely worked my way up the ranks. It's a great co-founding team. It's a husband and wife team, Ugo and Isabella Conti, and they've been excellent mentors throughout the years, and I've just slowly worked up the ranks to the point where they wanted to hand me the reins, and
amazing.
that's how I got here. Yeah.
Yeah, I really trusted you, and
Yeah.
you obviously knew the business inside and out at that point.
Right, and I must have shown them the right, what they considered to be the right skill set
Yeah.
and all that to hand it over to me, right? And so Isabella is now our executive chairman, and Ugo is our CTO.
Great, that's
Yeah.
cool.
So we have a really core, tight, close team.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really
Been
that's
together for a
awesome.
lot of years.
I bet.
Yeah.
Yeah, sounds like it. What do you think are kind of some of the key skills that you use now as a CEO and running your business?
Yeah, I think so. Obviously with with that kind of role, there has to be a lot of things that go into doing it well. Whether it's the strategic vision, being able to also kind of look to the future of, in our instance, or in our case, what is the future of maritime robotics? Where do we see our technology fitting in? What are our benefits versus our competition? So really kind of understanding the space and then being able to act on it is essential. And then of course, to a certain degree, with such a small team, we wear a lot of hats.
Yeah.
So I think, having the background I have, having the ocean experience, really understanding how things work at sea, what it's like operationally, right?
Yeah.
That's really big. I think a lot of people don't really get it because
They haven't been there.
they haven't been there, right?
Yeah.
And there are a lot of issues with working at sea. So that kind of background really helped. The project management is definitely a skill that I've used. So that was important as well.
Well, one of the things that has really struck me in these conversations as well is that as people go into running businesses, they have this really deep industry knowledge from something completely different.
Yeah.
So just going immediately to get your MBA and then run a business, you might not have the industry knowledge of the type of company that you're working
Right.
at.
Right.
So I can imagine that really helped you climb up the ranks and know, like you said,
Yeah.
know the industry.
Yeah, and I think it's also really important when you have a small team, right? Because if you have more of the business, MBA kind of track, then obviously you need to surround yourself with people that have the relevant
The industry
skill.
knowledge,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. So of course that you can do it that way as well. It's
Yeah.
just another way to do it. But when you have a really small team, it's good to have really well-rounded people.
Absolutely. And to your point, hiring great people is also a really important skill to
Yeah.
have.
Yeah. Or they say, one great employee is worth 5 good employees. Yeah, that's very true.
Cool. Just kind of thinking about inspiring young people, what would you say to people who are maybe interested in running a business someday?
Oh, that's a good question. So for me, I think what's important advice to anybody that's looking to start a career or do something is to really find your passion, and that can be hard sometimes. And I think it's really important to expose yourself to a lot of different things because at a young age you might be passionate about one thing, but you might not necessarily have a lot of experiences. So I think it's good to really get out there and kind of understand what's available and see if you can kind of really zero in on what drives you. And I think that's important and sometimes hard to do, depending on what your opportunities are. So in that way, it's really kind of getting yourself out there, whether you're volunteering or interning at places. I think that's important.
Cool. Would that be the same advice for somebody wanting to get into the blue economy in general?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially, there are lots of people that have never been exposed to it. They might not live on a coast, and if they do live on a coast, they might not be involved in it. They might not understand how big it is and all the things that you can do within the blue economy, right? Whether it's science-based stuff, whether it's ocean cleanup, BlueTech industry. There are so many different things within the blue economy, and then that also extends onto land. There's a lot of stuff on land that has to do with the blue economy,
Absolutely.
so it's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of opportunities
Yeah,
involved.
for sure.
Very cool. Great. That's pretty much it. Thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely, my
really
pleasure.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.